I'm here with Cliff Ravenscraft of cliffravenscraft.com at Social Media Marketing World 2018. I think a lot of people might call you the podcast answer man. That's something that you've talked about for a really long time. I know a lot of podcasters at this conference that have been following you for years and learning how to do it. What did you talk about here at the conference? It wasn't about podcasting.
Well, I'm in the podcasting track because, that's what I've been known for.
Sure.
So I did how to build a profitable and responsible business around your podcasting efforts. And what happens is there are a lot of people who have created podcasts over the years, and they're like, hey, I'm 2 years into this, I have X number of downloads, and I just haven't found a way to monetize this.
Monies. How do I make the monies?
Exactly. And so the cool thing was I was able to talk to podcasters, but I didn't talk about podcasting. I talked about what it takes to actually build a business, and that your podcast is not a business.
Okay, so that had to be, I know monetization in the YouTube world, I get asked that question all the time. That had to be a really popular session because we can kind of learn the logistics of podcasting fairly, not easily, I'm not trying to put that down. I just mean like you can learn the tactics of how to get that out there, but actually having something that is so valuable that also now has a revenue strategy attached to it, that's a big step. I want to ask you about the word responsible.
Okay.
Why did you include the word responsible in your title about a revenue?
Because
I like it. But
most people are not creating responsible businesses.
How is that?
Because people have spent the lifetime as an employee, and now they think, hey, I'm going to go out and create a podcast, and I'm going to eventually transition out of my soul-sucking career. And you can't just leave the mindset that you have as a lifetime of an employee and jump into the business world and expect it to work. So what happens is these people have been making, $12 an hour, $15 an hour, maybe even $30, $40 an hour, right?
Right.
And they say, you know what, I'm gonna create this podcast, I wanna be a thought leader, I wanna be the go-to person for this thing.
Sounds like the dream.
And I did that, and you know what I charged? $50 an hour for my one-on-one.
Whoa.
And you know what, you could book yourself 30, 40 hours a week at $50 an hour and you will be broke. And if you were like me, or if you are like I was, I had a wife that was a stay-at-home mom and 3 young kids, and I had just left a very lucrative career as an insurance agent after 12 years. And at the end of my first year in business, I only made $11,000 net income. Wow. That, my friends, is not a responsible or profitable business. But I was loving what I was doing.
I know.
But boy, did I struggle.
The passion. It's so funny how we but I'm so passionate, so I must be doing something right because I'm happy. But it's like, but your family's not doing too good right now. So you have that responsibility. That's really, really interesting. So where do you think is I think everyone has the very basic question, right? I don't know what to talk about, so that's like a podcast issue. But then it's I don't know what to sell.
Yeah.
What does that look like when you're assessing that situation for somebody that has a podcast?
Yeah, so first of all, I try to get them to forget about the fact that they already have a podcast. Because many times when I talk to them about the process, I give them a 9-step formula for building a profitable and responsible online business around your podcast. And by the way, creating your podcast is step number 8. So they skip the first.
Content strategy then is step number 8. Is that what you're saying?
No,
literally
starting your podcast,
Oh, wow.
recording your first episode is step number 8.
Okay.
So there's some key things that you want to know is for example, what kind of business do I want to create? How much money, not do I want to make, how much money must I make for this to be responsible? To live the life that I want my family to have, to be out of debt, to have financial freedom.
Yeah.
Step number 1 is to decide right now, what is my destination? Where is this going to lead me? So for example, what happens is a lot of people, they don't think about that.
Right.
They think it's that's kind of weird to say, well, I'm going to create a business, but I want it to generate a minimum of $15,000 a month.
Yeah.
Okay, but if that's what you need, that's what you need. If it's 20,000, if it's 7,000, but you have to set the amount. What most people do, Amy, is this. They actually create a podcast, they build an audience, and they're having so much fun, they give so much away for free, and they're like, okay, now that I've got people's attention, what can I sell them? And so they decide, okay, what kind of product can I come up with?
Right.
And then I wonder how much I can charge for this.
Right.
But what if you actually said, hey, my business that I'm going to create is going to be responsible and profitable from the get-go. I must make a minimum of $15,000 a month. Well, what if you have done step number 1, and when you get to step number 8, when you hit the record on your podcast for the first 10, 15 episodes, every single episode, you're ready because there's steps in the process are to determine who your exact ideal customer is. You're going to determine people, by the way, they have to be people with money. Okay, that's important. Your audience must be people with money.
That's an interesting requirement many people do not consider.
They must have a problem that you can solve. And another critical thing, you also have to want to solve it.
Yes. So is that where we get passion from?
Yes.
Okay, because that's where people get confused about passion. Like, I'm very passionate about this, but how does it solve a problem? And is the passion there enough, so much so that you'll stick with it for as long as this process is going to take you to get into your flow and actually have a sustainable business?
Yeah, and is it a problem that people are willing to pay?
Right.
So, like, for example, step number 7 in the process, we're jumping all through this process if you don't matter. I don't know I don't even know if we'll actually have all 7 of them in here, but anyway, step number 7 is validate your products and services.
Yeah.
And that means, I say this, before you record your first episode, you absolutely must get somebody to pay you something for what it is that you want to be promoting with your podcast.
That's wild for a lot of people, right? Because we have been told to start getting out there that we know what we're doing, and the best way to do that is to deliver as much value as humanly possible for free through a content strategy.
Yep.
So now you're saying, don't publish that podcast until you have absolutely proved concept on the thing you want to sell, because why are you going to go through all this trouble to build a marketing strategy for a product that's not going to sell?
That's exactly right. And your podcast is a lot of work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of branding, and you go in and you create it, and next thing you know, it's like, wow, I never really thought about that.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, when I share with them this formula, I say, before I even start sharing, and at the beginning of my talk, I said, listen, some of you already have a podcast, and I want to give you permission to do one of 2 things after my talk today. Permission number 1, you are free to go home and completely shut down your podcast, never record another episode, and start a brand new one.
Cliff said I could.
Number 2, you have my permission to completely change the name of your podcast, change the artwork, and
I've done that 2 times.
Keep the same podcast feed and simply delete all the other episodes and just restart with 001 again. You have that freedom. You can do that.
It's amazing. You know, I say the same thing to people that are like, should I delete my old videos? Everything's changing, it's shifting, I'm new now, I'm pivoting. If they're still helpful to your target customer, and you just don't like them because maybe your camera wasn't as cool back in the day, change the thumbnail.
Exactly.
There's always something that you can do to continue to improve on the thing you're working on now. It doesn't mean you have to erase history. You just have to learn from it.
Exactly.
Thank you, Cliff. That was awesome.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.